Every morning when you wake up, life gives you a choice. Either you show up for your old self, the one defined by habits, fears, doubts, and limitations, or you show up for the new self, the one waiting to be born inside you. Real change doesn't come from wishing. It doesn't come from motivation alone. It comes from one powerful decision to show up for yourself again and again until the new you becomes your reality. ChatGPT said, real change begins the moment you decide to show up differently. This single line carries the seed of transformation, but often we underestimate its depth. Most of us think change is about huge leaps, sudden breakthroughs, or external circumstances shifting in our favor. But the truth is, change is far more intimate, far more personal. It begins inside with a single decision you make about how you will show up, not for the world, not for others, but first and foremost for yourself. Imagine waking up every morning and replaying the same patterns of yesterday. You get out of bed, check your phone, scroll through messages, and let your mood be determined by notifications. You drink your tea or coffee, complain about the same problems, and carry the same heavy energy into your day. At night, you wonder why nothing feels different. The answer is simple. You are showing up today as the same person you were yesterday. You are repeating yourself, and therefore, your life is repeating itself. Real change cannot enter a life that is stuck on repeat. Now, think about a day when you decided to show up differently. Perhaps one morning you woke up and said, I'm not going to complain today. I'll start this day with gratitude. And instead of checking your phone, you took a few minutes to breathe, to reflect, to thank life for what you already have. That small shift in showing up changed your mood, your energy, and even the way you interacted with others. Maybe people responded to you differently. Maybe you attracted opportunities instead of problems. That is the power of showing up differently. It doesn't always require dramatic action. Sometimes it's as subtle as changing your state of mind. We often underestimate how much of our future is shaped by how we choose to be in the present moment. Life is not asking us for perfection, it is asking us for presence. Showing up differently means refusing to let old habits dictate today. It means interrupting the autopilot that runs your life. If you always get irritated in traffic, what if you show up differently and use that time to listen to something inspiring instead of getting angry? If you always doubt yourself before a presentation, what if you show up differently with confidence, rehearsed not by words alone, but by embodying the energy of someone who is already successful? That's how new futures are written, by choosing to show up as the version of yourself you wish to become. There's a story about a woman who struggled with fitness for years. She joined countless gyms, started countless diets, but nothing seemed to stick. Why? Because she kept showing up as her old self, the one who doubted her ability, who carried the identity of, I always fail. One day she made a powerful shift. Instead of focusing on weight loss or results, she decided to simply show up differently. She told herself, I am someone who takes care of my body. Every day she showed up for a walk, even if short. Every day she made one better choice. Slowly her brain rewired. Slowly her body followed. Within a year, she transformed not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. That transformation began not with a diet plan, not with a trainer, but with the decision to show up differently. You see, showing up differently is not about waiting for external conditions to change. Most people say, when I get that job, I'll be confident. When I earn more money, I'll be generous. When people treat me well, I'll be kind. But that is the trap. If you keep waiting for the outside world, you will stay the same inside. Real change works the other way around. You show up with confidence first, and opportunities arrive. You show up with kindness first, and relationships shift. You show up with discipline first, and results follow. Life is simply mirroring how you choose to appear in it. Think of it like planting seeds. If you keep planting the same old seeds, fear, doubt, procrastination, you will keep reaping the same harvest. But the moment you plant different seeds, courage, gratitude, determination, you guarantee a different harvest in the future. Showing up differently is the act of planting new seeds every day. At first, it feels uncomfortable because the soil of your habits resists change. But over time, those seeds sprout into a life you once only dreamed of. Even in relationships, this principle works wonders. If every day you show up as the same partner who complains, criticizes, or withdraws, the relationship will not grow. But if you choose to show up differently, more patient, more present, more appreciative, you create space for love to deepen. Real change in a marriage, a friendship, or even a workplace starts with one person deciding to show up differently. The beauty of this truth is that you don't need to control the entire world. You don't need to fix everything at once. All you need to do is take charge of how you appear in the next moment. You are not responsible for yesterday anymore, but you are absolutely responsible for today. And today's choice will design tomorrow. So ask yourself every morning, how can I show up differently today? Maybe it's showing up with more energy, with more faith, with more courage. Maybe it's showing up with less fear, less doubt, less anger. Each day you have the power to shift even slightly. And those small shifts multiplied daily create massive change. Real change begins when you stop negotiating with your past and start negotiating with your future. It begins when you stop saying, "This is just who I am," and start saying, "This is who I choose to be." You are not defined by the old self who lived yesterday. You are defined by the self you decide to show up as today. And when you do, something magical happens. Life begins to align with your decision. Opportunities arise, people respond differently, your energy attracts better experiences. Why? Because you finally decided to show up differently. That is the first and most powerful step toward real change. If you live today as yesterday, your tomorrow will never change. This single truth explains why so many people feel stuck in the same cycle year after year. They hope that something will suddenly shift in their life, that luck will come knocking, or that circumstances will magically improve. Yet when you look closely, you see the same daily habits, the same choices, the same mindset being repeated again and again. How can a new future arrive if every day is simply a copy, paste of the past? Imagine someone who wakes up each morning, hits snooze 3 times, rushes to work without proper preparation, spends the day complaining about their boss, and returns home drained and dissatisfied. They might dream of a promotion, a better life, or more fulfillment, but their actions are a mirror of yesterday. When today is lived as a replica of yesterday, tomorrow will bring nothing new. It will simply be yesterday recycled. Real transformation requires breaking this loop. Think of it like watching the same episode of a TV show every night and expecting the storyline to change. It won't. Unless you choose a new episode, the story will remain identical. In life, choosing a new episode means showing up with new actions, new energy, and new intentions. It means deciding that today will not be governed by the inertia of yesterday. Take the example of a student. If yesterday they procrastinated on assignments, scrolled endlessly on social media, and barely studied, and today they do the same, what will tomorrow look like? The grades will reflect the same behavior. The stress will remain. The future will not change. But if the student wakes up one day and says, "No more repeating the same cycle. Today I will dedicate 2 hours to focused study," they have broken the loop. That small decision sets the stage for a new tomorrow. It is the same with health. If yesterday you skipped exercise, indulged in junk food, and stayed up late, and today you follow the same script, what can you expect in the future? The body simply responds to the habits you feed it. But the moment you disrupt that cycle by choosing water over soda, a walk over the couch, or an early bedtime over endless scrolling, you change the trajectory of tomorrow. Your health does not improve overnight, but the direction of your life shifts instantly. Even in relationships, this pattern is visible. If you argue in the same way, hold the same grudges, and repeat the same complaints, how can the relationship transform? Tomorrow will look like yesterday. But if one person decides to break the cycle by responding with patience instead of anger, appreciation instead of criticism, or listening instead of interrupting, the relationship starts to move in a new direction. Change in connection begins when one person stops living today as a replay of yesterday. At work, this truth shapes careers. If you show up every day with the same lack of enthusiasm, doing only the bare minimum, waiting for recognition, nothing changes. Tomorrow will look like yesterday, and 5 years later, you will still feel stuck. But if you choose to show up differently, to learn a new skill, to volunteer for a project, to offer ideas, suddenly opportunities open. The future shifts because today is no longer a repeat of the past. It's easy to blame circumstances. Many say, "My life is the same because nothing around me changes." But the deeper reality is that circumstances often change when you do. The world mirrors back to you the energy you bring into it. If you bring the same energy every day, you get the same reflection every day. If you shift your energy through gratitude, through courage, through effort, the reflection changes. Consider the example of someone unhappy in their life who constantly says, "This is just who I am." That statement locks them into the past. They wake up and unconsciously repeat yesterday's emotions, yesterday's fears, yesterday's habits. But the moment they say, "This is who I choose to be today," they break the chain. They are no longer a victim of the past, but a creator of the future. Think of it like driving a car in circles around the same block. You complain that you never reach a new destination, but every day you take the same turns. Unless you choose a new road, the view will not change. Life works the same way. If your decisions today echo your decisions yesterday, your tomorrow will show the same scenery. But the day you take a new turn, learn a new skill, adopt a new mindset, change your daily routine, you set yourself on a new journey. Breaking free from yesterday requires awareness. Most people don't even realize they are living on autopilot. They wake up and immediately step into yesterday's identity. Their body remembers the emotions of stress, their mind remembers the stories of limitation, and they act as if today is simply an extension of the past. That is why meditation, reflection, and mindfulness are so powerful. They interrupt the autopilot and remind you that you are not your past. You are the creator of the present moment. So ask yourself, are you replaying yesterday or are you rewriting today? Every moment is an invitation. You can carry the same old self into it, or you can invite a new self to appear. The future is not some distant place waiting for you. It is shaped right here in the choice of how you live this day. If you keep living today as yesterday, your tomorrow will never change. But if you dare to live today differently, even in small ways, your tomorrow will unfold in ways you never imagined. All transformation begins with this choice to stop being a repeat of the past and to start being the author of the future. Showing up for yourself rewires your brain and body. At first glance, this statement might sound abstract or scientific, but in truth it carries a deep, life-changing meaning. Every single day, your brain is creating pathways, just like roads in a city. The more often you travel a certain road, the wider and smoother it becomes. If you keep choosing thoughts of fear, self-doubt, and limitation, your brain keeps paving those old roads until they become highways of habit. But the moment you decide to show up differently, you begin to carve out new roads. It may feel uncomfortable at first, like walking through rough terrain, but with consistency, those paths become stronger, and your brain and body start to follow this new map. Think about it this way. If you've spent years telling yourself, "I can't do this, I'm not enough, I always fail," your brain wires itself to expect failure, and your body responds with stress, fatigue, and lack of motivation. But when you consciously begin to show up for yourself with new words, "I am capable, I am learning, I can grow," your brain lights up new circuits. Your body begins to feel more energized, your chemistry shifts, and suddenly you are not just thinking differently, you are being different. This is the power of showing up for yourself. You literally change the inner blueprint that controls your life. Take the example of someone who decides to wake up earlier for meditation. On the first day, the body resists. The brain whispers, "Stay in bed, it's comfortable here." But when the person chooses to show up anyway, even for 10 minutes, the brain registers something new. The body feels calmer, the mind feels clearer. Day after day, those 10 minutes rewire stress into peace, distraction into focus. After weeks, the person no longer needs to force themselves. The brain and body now crave this new state. What was once foreign becomes natural because showing up consistently changed the wiring. This principle shows up everywhere in daily life. Imagine someone who always reacts with anger when criticized. Their brain has built a reflex: criticism equals attack, so respond with rage. But if that person chooses to show up differently, to pause, breathe, and respond calmly, the first time feels awkward, even forced. The second time still feels strange, but as they repeat this new behavior, the brain begins to build new connections. Criticism equals reflection, not rage. Over time, the body relaxes, the stress hormones reduce, and the old pattern dissolves. By showing up differently, they have rewired not only their brain, but also their emotional responses. Even science confirms that your thoughts create physical changes. Neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to rewire itself, proves that nothing about you is fixed. If you show up every day feeding the old self, you strengthen old circuits. If you show up for the new self, you build new circuits. Your brain doesn't care which one you choose, it simply obeys repetition. This means you are never a prisoner of your past. You are simply a product of what you keep rehearsing. And rehearsal is nothing but showing up again and again. Let's consider the body. If someone always feels stressed, their body memorizes that stress. The muscles tighten, the heart races, the immune system weakens. Over time, the body becomes addicted to this chemical state, and even when there is no danger, it demands stress. But if that person decides to show up for themselves by practicing gratitude or deep breathing, the body experiences new chemistry, dopamine, serotonin, relaxation hormones. The body begins to reassociate life not with stress but with peace. Again, it is showing up differently that creates this transformation. Think about exercise as another example. On day one, lifting weights feels impossible. The body aches, the mind says, "You can't do this." But when you show up for yourself consistently, the body adapts, muscles grow, stamina increases, and soon what was once difficult becomes natural. The same law applies not just to physical strength, but to mental and emotional strength. The body follows the patterns you commit to. Even in small habits, this truth shines. If every evening you collapse on the couch with junk food and television, your body wires laziness into your identity. But if you decide to show up for yourself by going for a short walk or cooking a healthy meal, the body begins to feel different. Energy rises, mood improves, and slowly you redefine who you are. The act of showing up in new ways creates a new you. Relationships, too, are transformed by this principle. If you always show up with defensiveness, your brain and body prepare for conflict before the conversation even begins. But if you start showing up with openness and vulnerability, your chemistry changes and your partner responds differently. What once triggered arguments now creates connection. The rewiring doesn't just happen inside you, it influences those around you. So often, people wait for motivation to arrive before they act, but real transformation works the other way around. By showing up first, even when you don't feel ready, you teach your brain and body a new reality. The motivation comes later, after the wiring has begun to shift. The secret is not to wait for the right feeling, but to create the right feeling by showing up. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. It's not about showing up once with great energy and then quitting. It's about showing up every day in small ways because each repetition rewires the brain a little more, each choice reshapes the body a little further. Slowly but surely, the old self dissolves and a new self emerges, not by magic, but by the daily act of showing up. When you decide to show up for yourself, you are not just creating new habits, you are literally creating a new brain, a new body, a new future. The past no longer holds power because every choice is carving new pathways. This is the miracle of human life. You are not stuck as who you were yesterday. By showing up for yourself breaks the cycle of excuses. We all know how easily excuses sneak into our lives, almost like old friends we've known forever. "I'm too tired today. I'll start tomorrow. It's not the right time." These excuses feel comforting in the moment, like a warm blanket on a cold day. But the truth is, they rob us of progress, they steal from our future, and they keep us locked in the same patterns that we say we want to escape. Excuses are clever because they disguise themselves as valid reasons. But when you look closer, they are nothing more than lies that keep you small. The moment you decide to show up for yourself, no matter what, you begin to break that cycle. Imagine someone who has been wanting to start exercising. For weeks, they tell themselves, "I'll go when I have more energy, when the weather is better, when work slows down." Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months. Then one day, they decide to stop listening to the excuses and just show up, maybe only for a 10-minute walk. Suddenly, everything changes. The excuses no longer have the same power because action has weakened their grip. Over time, that person realizes that showing up matters more than perfection. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about creating momentum by showing up even in imperfect circumstances. Excuses are rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of the unknown. The brain naturally resists anything unfamiliar because it prefers safety. But safety and growth do not live in the same room. If you want to grow, You must be willing to step into discomfort. Showing up for yourself means telling your excuses, I hear you, but I'm not letting you lead me anymore. This inner dialogue begins to change your identity. You stop identifying as someone who makes promises they never keep, and you begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. Think about the student who always says, I'll study tomorrow, every evening. They delay thinking they have more time. Then exams arrive and panic sets in. If that same student simply decided to show up every day for even 20 minutes, their knowledge would grow, their stress would shrink, and their confidence would rise. Excuses thrive in procrastination, but showing up shatters procrastination because it transforms intention into action. Even in relationships, excuses play a damaging role. I don't have time to call my parents. I'll spend more time with my partner when work isn't so busy. I'll listen to my children tomorrow. Days slip by and bonds weaken. But the moment you show up, even in small gestures, a short call, a hug, a kind word, the excuses dissolve. You realize that connection doesn't require perfect timing or hours of effort. It simply requires presence. Your body also knows the language of excuses. I can't wake up early. I can't quit this habit. I can't eat healthier. The body listens to these words and stays stuck in old routines. But when you show up differently, by rising from bed at the first alarm, by choosing water instead of soda, by walking instead of scrolling, you send a new message to your body. Slowly, the body adapts. Energy rises, discipline grows, and excuses lose their authority. Excuses often sound like logic, but they are emotional chains. For example, someone who dreams of starting a business might say, I need more money first, I need more skills, I need to wait until things are stable. But years later, those same excuses remain. The ones who break free are the ones who show up anyway. With limited resources, imperfect skills, and a little courage, they start small, they take one step, and momentum carries them forward. In hindsight, they realize that the excuses were never real, they were just fear in disguise. The truth is, excuses are endless. Life will always offer a reason not to act. There will always be challenges, always be discomfort, always be uncertainty. If you wait for the conditions to be perfect, you will wait your entire life. Showing up for yourself means you choose action despite imperfection. You stop asking, is it easy, and start saying, I'll do it anyway. There is a deep freedom in breaking excuses. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to know that when you say you'll do something, you will. That trust becomes self-respect, and self-respect becomes confidence. Instead of living at the mercy of circumstances, you live from a place of power. Even when things don't go perfectly, you know you showed up, and that alone moves you forward. Take the example of writing. A person may dream of becoming an author, but keeps waiting for inspiration, waiting for free time, waiting for the right idea. But writers who succeed are not the ones who wait for inspiration. They are the ones who show up at the desk daily, even when the words feel stuck. By breaking the excuse of waiting, they discover that action brings inspiration, not the other way around. Showing up breaks the cycle of excuses because it teaches you that action is always greater than hesitation. You realize that the story in your head about why you can't is far bigger than the reality. Once you step forward, the fear shrinks and the excuses sound smaller. It is not that life gets easier, it is that you become stronger, more committed, more resilient. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this: every time you show up despite excuses, you are creating evidence that you are capable. That evidence stacks up inside you, building unshakable belief. Soon, you no longer see yourself as someone who hides behind excuses, but as someone who acts in spite of them. That identity shift is what breaks the cycle forever. When you look back years later, you won't remember the excuses. You won't remember the reasons you gave for delaying. You will only remember whether you showed up or not. And the life you build, the health, the relationships, the career, the peace, will all be the result of one choice repeated again and again, refusing excuses and choosing to show up for yourself. Showing up for yourself builds unshakable confidence. Confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you create day by day through the choices you make and the actions you take. Many people wait to feel confident before they step forward, but the truth is reversed. Confidence grows when you step forward first. When you show up even in your uncertainty, even when your hands are trembling and your heart is racing, You prove to yourself that you can handle life. And with each repetition, your self-belief becomes stronger, like a muscle that grows with use. Think about a young professional giving their first presentation. They're nervous, their voice shakes, and their mind keeps whispering, "What if I mess up?" But they show up anyway. They deliver, imperfectly perhaps, but they deliver. Afterward, they realize the world didn't collapse and people even appreciated their effort. The next time they show up again, still nervous but slightly stronger. By the fifth or sixth time, the nerves have softened, the voice is firmer, and confidence has begun to take root. The transformation didn't happen because they waited until they felt ready. It happened because they showed up consistently, and consistency became confidence. Confidence is not about arrogance or thinking you are better than others. It's about trust. Trust in yourself that you will rise to the occasion. Trust that you can handle challenges. Trust that even if you fall, you can get back up. This kind of trust is not given. It is earned by showing up for yourself again and again, especially when it's hard. Each time you face discomfort and push through, your mind registers a message, "I can do this." That message builds your inner foundation, and soon you begin to carry yourself differently. Not because circumstances changed, but because you changed. Take another example, a student preparing for exams. They might feel overwhelmed, believing they aren't smart enough. But each day they sit down with their books. Each day they push past distractions. They are building quiet confidence. When the exam day arrives, their confidence is not rooted in hope, it is rooted in evidence. They have shown up for themselves daily, and that evidence tells them, "I am prepared." Confidence born this way is solid because it's backed by action, not just wishful thinking. The same applies to health. Imagine someone who has struggled with fitness for years. They might feel embarrassed walking into a gym, convinced that everyone is stronger or fitter. But when they show up anyway, sweating, struggling, but trying, their body begins to change. More importantly, their identity begins to change. Each workout whispers, "You belong here. You are capable." Soon they stand taller, walk with more energy, and no longer avoid the mirror. Confidence has grown, not because they became perfect overnight, but because they kept showing up despite discomfort. Showing up builds confidence in relationships as well. Many people hold back from expressing their feelings because they fear rejection or judgment. But when you decide to show up with honesty, to tell a friend you appreciate them, to apologize when you're wrong, to share your dreams with your partner, you strengthen the relationship and strengthen your trust in yourself. Even if the response isn't perfect, the fact that you were authentic grows your confidence in your own voice. There's also the example of starting something completely new, a business, a skill, a creative pursuit. At the beginning, confidence feels non-existent because everything is unfamiliar. But showing up daily, making one phone call, practicing one skill, writing one page, creates momentum. After weeks and months, the fear shrinks and confidence begins to rise because you now have proof that you can move forward. You stop saying, "I can't," and start saying, "I've done it before. I can do it again." What makes confidence unshakable is that it's not dependent on external validation. If your confidence only comes when others praise you, it will crumble the moment someone criticizes you. But if your confidence comes from showing up for yourself, it becomes steady. You know who you are, you know what you've done, and no outside opinion can take that away. That inner confidence radiates quietly. It doesn't need to shout because it's rooted in truth. Think of a child learning to ride a bicycle. At first, they wobble, they fall, they cry. But with every attempt, they grow stronger. The first successful ride fills them with pride, not because someone told them they were great, but because they showed up, fell, and tried again. That is the seed of unshakable confidence. As adults, the process is the same, the stakes are just different. Whether it's giving a speech, applying for a job, or making a big life decision, confidence is born in the same soul, showing up despite fear. Over time, confidence spreads into every area of life. When you build it in one place like health, studies, or work, it spills into others. The person who learns to trust themselves in exercise may find they also trust themselves more in relationships. The student who gains confidence through preparation begins to take on leadership roles. The cycle reinforces itself. The more you show up, the more confident you become. The more confident you are, the more you show up. And here lies the beauty. Unshakable confidence isn't about being fearless. It's about acting even when fear is present. It's about reminding yourself that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Every time you show up for yourself, you are choosing courage, and courage compounds into confidence. Years later, when you look back, you won't remember all the times you felt afraid. You'll remember the times you showed up anyway. And those moments will be the building blocks of the person you became: steady, resilient, confident. That unshakable confidence is not gifted from the outside, it's built on the inside through one choice repeated again and again to show up for yourself no matter what. Showing up for yourself teaches discipline and consistency. These two words may not sound glamorous, but they are the secret behind every remarkable transformation you've ever admired. Discipline is the bridge between your intentions and your results, and consistency is the vehicle that carries you across that bridge. When you show up for yourself day after day, even in small ways, you begin to reprogram your life around reliability. You no longer wait for motivation, because motivation is fleeting. Instead, you cultivate discipline, and discipline carries you forward even when your mood or energy doesn't cooperate. Think of someone who decides to start running every morning. On the first day, the excitement is fresh, the motivation is high. The second day, the alarm rings early, and the comfort of the bed whispers, "Stay." If they rely only on motivation, they will roll over and sleep. But if they rely on discipline, they will rise, lace their shoes, and step outside anyway. That one choice strengthens a muscle far greater than the legs. It strengthens the muscle of self-mastery. Each day they repeat the act, their consistency begins to carve a new identity. I am someone who shows up for myself. That identity becomes unshakable, and it is discipline, not motivation, that has built it. Consistency doesn't demand perfection, it only demands showing up. Too often, people quit because they miss a day or fall short of their ideal. But real consistency is not about never stumbling. It's about returning again and again to the path you've chosen. Imagine someone learning the guitar. Their fingers ache, their chords buzz, and progress feels painfully slow. If they practice once a month, nothing changes. But if they show up daily, even for 15 minutes, their fingers grow stronger, their ears sharper, and suddenly the music begins to flow. It wasn't one grand act that transformed them. It was small, consistent acts that built skill and confidence. Discipline is also a form of love toward yourself. It's saying, I care enough about my future to choose what is difficult now. Think about a student preparing for exams. It's easier to watch television, scroll on the phone, or go out with friends. But when they discipline themselves to study regularly, they are not punishing themselves, they are investing in their future freedom. That self-discipline pays off when they enter the exam room with confidence rather than panic. The short-term sacrifice creates long-term peace, and that is the gift of showing up with discipline. Life gives us countless examples of how discipline changes outcomes. Athletes don't wake up champions, they train relentlessly, repeating drills thousands of times. Writers don't produce books by waiting for inspiration. They sit down at their desk every day, whether the words come easily or not. Entrepreneurs don't build businesses by dreaming. They show up to make phone calls, solve problems, and push through failures consistently. In every field, the people we admire are not simply talented, they are disciplined and consistent. They chose to show up when it was hardest, and that choice separated them from the rest. But discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It's not about living with rigidity or punishing rules. True discipline is about freedom. Imagine someone who lacks discipline with money. They spend impulsively, buy what they don't need, and avoid budgeting. At first, this feels like freedom, but soon debt mounts, stress grows, and they feel trapped. Now consider someone disciplined with money. They save a portion of their income, they control their spending, they plan wisely. At first, this feels restrictive, but in the long run, it creates true freedom, freedom from stress, freedom to travel, freedom to pursue opportunities. Discipline, then, is not a prison. It is the key to unlock lasting freedom. Consistency also builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Every time you promise yourself you'll do something and then follow through, you build inner credibility. You begin to believe in yourself because you have evidence that your words and actions align. On the other hand, every broken promise weakens that trust. When you show up consistently, you begin to carry a quiet strength, a certainty that you can rely on yourself. That certainty is priceless because it carries into every area of life, your career, health, your relationships. Consider relationships again. A parent who consistently spends even a little quality time with their child builds a bond far stronger than one who occasionally makes grand gestures but is otherwise absent. A friend who consistently shows up in times of need creates trust more than one who only appears when convenient. Consistency is not about doing everything, it's about doing the important things regularly. Showing up with discipline makes your presence reliable, and reliability builds lasting connections. Even your body thrives on consistency. A person who eats one healthy meal a month will see no change. But someone who makes small daily choices, drinking water, walking, resting well, creates transformation over time. Health is not built in a day, but in the countless small days strung together with consistency. Discipline makes those choices easier because it shifts your focus from what you want right now to what you truly want long term. There's also a spiritual aspect to discipline and consistency. Meditation, prayer, reflection. These practices yield their deepest rewards only through repetition. One day of silence may calm the mind, but years of consistent practice reshape the soul. Showing up every day for inner growth anchors you in peace that no external chaos can shake. The beauty of discipline and consistency is that they compound. Just like money saved in a bank grows with interest, every disciplined choice adds interest to your life. Missing one day does not erase the progress, returning the next day strengthens it. Over time, the compounding effect becomes visible, and what once felt difficult becomes natural. Years from now, you won't remember the discomfort of waking early, resisting temptation, or practicing when tired. You will remember the strength, the skills, the confidence, and the peace that discipline and consistency gave you. You will thank yourself for showing up because, in the end, discipline is not about restriction. It is about becoming the version of yourself you've always wanted to be. So, my friends, don't wait for life to change before you do. Show up now as the person you want to become. Show up for you. Because the secret to real change is not in waiting, it is in becoming. And when you truly show up for yourself, the universe has no choice but to show up for you.